Welcome to another episode of the Be Fearless podcast. Thank you so much for your support. Today, I want to give a shout out, to South Africa and Nigeria for picking up the podcast again this month. Thank you so much for your support and for I'm actually ecstatic. I am so happy that you love our content. So thank you so much for supporting Be Fearless podcast. Today, I bring you an amazing guest. Today, our guest is a trailblazing esthetician with years of experience in the medical spa industry. Her journey in the world of skincare began long before the brand's inception in 2014. Feeling unfulfilled with her advertising career in New York City, she pursued her passion for beauty products and explored alternative skincare solutions. Her groundbreaking research into the potent benefits of bee venom sparked a large vision of harnessing nature's treasure for skincare without harming animals. With a dedicated team of scientists, she developed cruelty-free lab-created venom-inspired products that combine natural ingredients with science innovation. Her mission is clear: to provide effective, non-invasive anti-aging solutions for everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the CEO and founder of Intoxicating Cosmetic, Rachel Sommers. Welcome.
Dagmar.
How are you? Yay! Welcome, Rachel. I'm so excited to have you here.
Excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. For the people that doesn't know you, where are you talking to us today? Where are you at?
So I'm actually in my office. You can see we have a lot of skulls and Intoxicated Cosmetics. Whoop, this way. Banner. So yeah, just in the office, and this is where all the magic happens, so to speak.
Where's the office?
I'm sorry, what?
What city are you right now?
So I'm in the suburbs, actually, of Boston. Originally, when I had launched Intoxicated, it was in downtown Boston. But after becoming a mom and a wife, it was time to move out to the burbs. So
yay! Which is all good, all good. We love the burbs. I actually live in the burbs. Yeah, like I don't know if you noticed, but it kind of like it's like the best of both worlds. Like, yes, you have that peaceful, tranquil, lifestyle, but at the same time, you're not missing out too much of the city. So it is like the perfect combination.
And I'm like 30 minutes from Boston too. So it's like the perfect mix. So
yeah, I am like,
I have my walk-in closet. That's what I was missing in the city.
I love that. Okay, Rachel, for the people that just get to know you now, who was Rachel Sommers growing up and what was her dream?
Oh man, that's a good question. So I was always kind of a spicy, spunky kid. Actually, my father used to call me a tough cookie. I was definitely one of the girls that like wanted to hang out with the boys. I was a tomboy, believe it or not. But I was a competitive horseback rider. And so like when I was a kid, that was all I cared about. I used to actually compete all over the country, and I was sort of like the horse girl nerd in school who would like miss all the school dances and stuff because I was competing. I think like competition is in my nature, and that's always sort of what I loved. And I mean, as it kind of like as an adult, I feel like it sort of translates to business as competition, right? So I think that was definitely always kind of in me, and it definitely just again translated as I became an adult. But what I wanted to be, man, I actually when I was really young, I wanted to be an equine vet, a horse vet.
Oh my God.
I know. So, I mean, I think you can kind of see like the trend, my love for animals, and now we use, products that are inspired by animals.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it for me. But the road to like being a doctor, going to veterinary school, that I don't think that I could have done that. I mean, God bless the people who do it, but man, that was really intimidating to me.
Yeah, but I mean, you definitely stay close to what you love, which is animals, because you now use nature to develop great skincare products, which we will talk about that more.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, how was that process then? You didn't went to vet school, but then what do you do? What do you went for?
So as far as like how like my journey.
Studies, yeah, your journey.
So I went to Suffolk University in downtown Boston, and I majored in advertising. My family's business, we own a commercial printing company. So it includes packaging, like the boxes. Actually, the first round of boxes that I ever had made for my business now was printed at my family's business. And I got lucky because I ran out of money, and they, like, my older brother who now runs the shop was like, you can pay me back in your own time. But I put obviously like my life savings into creating my products. It's expensive to create products.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I went to Suffolk University, graduated in advertising, and then I actually was an executive assistant to the CFO of a SEO marketing company. So I was like her errand girl, and it was really tough. I made like no money. I was just kind of like scrapping like noodles for dinner type of thing. But it taught me a lot because, of course, she's a C-level executive at this relatively big company. Actually, when I first got there, they only had 50 employees. And then by the time I had left, they had 350. So I watched like this company grow and kind of saw a lot of, at least from the financial side, which of course, in the end was extremely educational for what I was going to do later on in life. But I saw, I watched how the company grew and sort of the necessary steps and some of the risks too that they took, working with different businesses and doing collaborations and things like that. And then after I sort of, I decided that, okay, this was a great learning experience. I want to move on from this. And then I started working at my family's business. So in sales as a print salesman, saleswoman, whatever, which, if you know me now, like if I can look back and kind of tell my younger self, like, wow, girl, this is not for you at all. But that was sort of just the path, I think, that I had kind of always been not only told to go down, but also that I believed like this was my best sort of shot at like success, right? Running family's business alongside my brother. And so I started working there, and it was actually really cool. At the time I was living in New York City doing this. One of my first accounts was at Diane von Furstenberg. And I remember sitting in the lobby of Diane von Furstenberg, and I am like shaking because it's like this huge, I don't, if anybody has ever been there, it's like this huge cascading staircase.
Wow.
And, these women walking around, it's like Devil Wears Prada in there. And here I am, I'm like shaking, like holding my print samples. I just felt it was really intimidating, but I ended up doing working with a few other really cool companies. Saucony was another company that I worked with. They're based outside of Boston now. But yeah, so that was sort of my two first real steps into like professional life. And then actually just about I'd say about 6 months after I had started working for my family's business, my father was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And so he was at the time, now my brother runs the business, but at the time he was the CEO. It's like a 500 person employee business. Actually, it's a third generation business now. My grandfather started it in 1949.
Oh, wow.
And so, we have these people who have been working for us for 30 years. They're like family. And it was just really hard to be there, especially with everything that was going on. Everyone knew. And, people were like crying in the hallways, and, and every time they talked to me, like it was never about work. It was like, are you okay? What's going on? And like, no, I wasn't okay. Right. But it was very like, I had no separation between this like really difficult thing that was going on in my personal life and just like having an escape, like somewhere to go, somewhere else to be, something to get my mind off of it. And so honestly, like I started just not performing. I was avoiding work. I was avoiding going into the office. I didn't want to see the tears and everyone asking me again, I'm like, okay, what's going on? How's your dad? Because also too, with my dad's cancer, he was diagnosed in like July, late June, early July, and he passed away in October. So it was very fast and really like dramatic, traumatic. And so I just stopped working. And then my older brother took over the business for my father. That it was always kind of his path to do that. He was sort of like,
Mhm.
you know, we were like in there painting poles when we were 13. I mean, I worked the presses when I was a teenager during summer break. You know, it's funny looking back at it now, but so my older brother ended up taking it over and he fired me. So he fired me. So he was like, "You're not performing. You know, we're all sad that dad died, but you need to basically like get your shit together.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're not going to work. You're not going to take, because you have like a, you know, in sales, you have a base salary and then
Yeah.
you have commissions. And so he's like, you're not going to get your base. I'm not going to spend this money on someone who's not working. And it was always kind of the deal. Like we never got special treatment at my family's business. Again, I like worked in the factory. I had like paint all over. I was like mowing lawns. It was
Which,
like,
you know what? I love that you said that because it speaks loud about the ethical standards that you hold on to.
yeah.
You know, so it is. I love that you said that you actually, you know, underline it. There's no special treatment here.
If anything, we got treated worse. You know, because it was like you have something to prove and no one cares like that it's your family's business. And I think that a lot of times too, like when I tell people, oh, I come from a big family business, they think like again that I got the special treatment. And again, it was worse. I actually my base salary was lower than everyone else's when I started there. So I mean, my dad really like wanted to prove a point to us, you know, and he was a really hard worker too. Like he was obsessed with working, and I definitely get like my work ethic from him. But yeah, it was known that like you do not treat them differently. If anything, you're harder on them. And I think too, because he wanted, you know, his business, it was again, my grandfather's business, but it really became my father's baby after my grandfather passed away. My father actually lost his grandfather relatively early too. He was probably about my age, around 35, when his dad died, and he took over this massive business. And you know, he wanted it to be successful, and so for it to be successful, he couldn't treat any of us specially, and he wanted all of us to work hard and do the best so that we could be the best, and continue on sort of that legacy. But anyway, so yeah, so then I got fired.
So what happened next? You got fired, and you were like, okay, what I'm gonna do? What route is taking? You know, I'm gonna take with my life.
Yeah. So again, at this time I'm living in New York City, and so it's definitely a long story, but I know we have the time to tell it. So
Oh yeah.
at the same time, I was dating this guy who was a total a-hole, right? And I actually caught him cheating on my dad, or cheating on me while my dad was in chemotherapy. So this is sort of all going on at the same time. So I remember I came home. My father was getting treatment at Sloan Kettering in New York City. And so when he would have his chemo appointments, I would go uptown. I lived in, you know, Midtown, basically Chelsea area. And I would go uptown and visit him. And basically I came home one day to someone else in my house with, you know, my boyfriend. So it was this really horrible time in my life. And and obviously we broke up, right? So I had just lost my dad, I lost my boyfriend, and I looked like crap. Like I looked like I had aged like 8 years and 8 months, let's say. And so I actually went to Sephora, the one in Union Square. I went to the Sephora there and was like, listen, I'm 24 at the time. So I was like, I'm 24. I'm too young to get Botox, in my opinion. And I want you to shoot me in the direction of your best serum, your fate, whatever is going to work the best, because I'm getting these like really deep fine lines. I look much older than I should. And again, I don't want Botox. And the sales clerk there pretty much told me, she was like, listen, none of these serums are going to do what you want them to do. You should just go get Botox. And that's that. And I was ready to like cough up like $300 for a serum, right? I didn't care. I just didn't want to go the needle
Yeah.
route yet. And I was feeling pretty edgy that day. I think I like knocked something over in the shelf on my way out. But so I'm like walking back to my apartment, a couple blocks. And I remembered, so when my father was sick, so let me just back up for a second. When my father was sick, and pretty much, like I told you, it was really quick. Like it was July to October that he had passed. So just a few months. And back then we went around to a lot of hospitals, and we went to Boston, we talked to some hospitals like in Europe, we were kind of all over the place who can treat my father the best, because pretty much what they said was, it's over, you're just, the best we can do is make him comfortable, potentially extend his life a little bit. And Sloan Kettering was the only hospital that said, like, let's treat this thing, like, let's get you to live at least for a few more years. So anyways, so what I kind of ended up doing was I started to research a lot about alternative methods of cancer treatment. And, just on my own time, like I'm not a doctor. I'm like some 24-year-old kid. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I remembered that I had stumbled upon bee venom. Bee venom contains a chemical compound called melatonin. That's one of the only naturally occurring chemical compounds that's able to break into disease wall barriers like HIV and cancer. So it doesn't actually cure it, but it just kind of like, I remembered it. It stuck with me. And, and later on too, of course, bee venom has all these other amazing properties. It has antimicrobial properties. It recreates collagen and elastin in the skin. It acts as a neuromuscular inhibitor, which makes our facial muscles move, which makes wrinkles. So I remembered that I had written this down. I thought it was interesting. And anyway, so I leave Sephora, I knock something off the shelf. I'm like having a real bad. So I remembered as I was walking home, I was like, why isn't there like a bee venom serum? Because it does all these things, right? Why is that not an option at Sephora? And so I like get back to my little crappy apartment, New York City. It's probably like the size of my office now. And I get back to my apartment and I just start looking at venom. I just start researching venom. And mind you, I'm fired. So I have the time. I have all the time in the world. I'm like scrambling for a job. I'm like, what am I going to do? And so I sort of get down just like this crazy rabbit hole, because at first I'm like, okay, bee venom, that's cool. Like what, what are there any serums out there? What can I do with it? I just thought it was so interesting. It was just one of those things that I was super drawn to, sort of naturally. And then I started to uncover that bee venom is actually one of the most highly researched venoms that there are out there. And so I started to think to myself, like, okay, if that's bee venom, like what other venoms are there and are they applicable to skincare? And so, I mean, weeks go by, months go by. I looked like a mad scientist. I had like notes, all like sticky notes, all taped all over my walls. Like I was like ordering pizza, like not leaving the apartment. I hear all these like people like having fun partying in New York.
Oh my God.
Like venom, I looked like a crazy person. I'm sure I did. I wish I had a picture of my apartment back then. I still have some of the original notes though.
That sounds like you went all Tony Stark.
Yeah, I did. I literally did. And so I just started to kind of get down these, so it was like weeks go by, months start to go by. And I also, by the way, I'm like running out of money. I'm like, I really need to like go get a job. So I started to, so I had this crazy idea. I was like, I'm going to make a skincare company that's based on venom. And also, mind you, too, like this is the time that all natural like skincare was the hot thing, like vegan skincare, everything's like pink and white and floral. And I'm like, I'm gonna make this venom. I'm like twitching probably a little bit. I'm like, I'm gonna make this venom-inspired skincare company. And I'm gonna call it Intoxicated Cosmetics. And everyone was like, this girl has lost it.
Lost her mind.
Lost her marbles. And so what I did realize though too, so I'm like teaching myself about chemical compounds and things that like I hadn't seen since I was in chemistry class, like in high school. And mind you, like I struggled to get a B- in chemistry class. Like it definitely wasn't something that came naturally to me. Um, and so I basically thought to myself, like, I really don't know what I'm talking about. I need to go back to aesthetic school. And so because, to talk the talk and walk the walk, like you have to have some kind of background knowledge.
Yeah.
And like I was pretty self-taught at this point. I had spent so many hours researching and looking into things, but I couldn't really like have a fluid conversation about skincare yet. I came from advertising. I mean, I loved products. I was a product junkie, so to speak, but I never, stepped really foot into the beauty industry. And so I knew that I had to kind of get there and do something that would sort of immerse myself. So I sent myself back with like my last few dollars back to aesthetic school. And graduated. I did in Massachusetts back then. They had a 300-hour program, so it was just like the basic aesthetics degree. And I actually started in the 600-hour program, but I ran out of money. So I was like, okay, time to get a job. This is like maybe 8 months go by. I'm like totally out of money. And so I do. So again, in order to talk the talk and walk the walk, I was like, great, I have my aesthetics degree now. I'm, kind of at night coming up with, after I go to school, I'm working on my company, the concept, the different venoms. Like again, venom wasn't like a thing. I mean, it barely is now, like back then. So I'm looking at all these different chemical compounds and trying to figure things out, coming up with a marketing strategy and so on. But I was like, I need money, so I have to go get a job. And I ended up getting a job on Newberry Street at a med spa. So that was and I was just working the front desk. And so while I was there, and I loved it, like I had so much fun. And I knew from then on to, again, like coming from working with like old men and printing like factory to, working in the beauty industry, like wearing cute clothes every day, talking about products. Like it was just so much fun to me. I loved it so much. And we had a great team too. And I loved my boss. Her name is Julie Michaud. She was amazing. And yeah, it was just a blast. And so I started working at the front desk, just like as a receptionist, basically. And then I got promoted like 4 times in 4 years. So I was at the front desk, then I was ahead of the front desk, then I was ahead of marketing, then I was ahead of, I stepped in for a while as the like spa director, and then I became the director of the academy, which they basically started it was a micropigmentation studio. Mm-hmm. So they did like facials, eyelashes, eyebrows, things like that. But their main focus was and micropigmentation. So they actually ended up teaching it. And so I became the director of the academy. But I did feel like, and again, so like, this is like kind of, I'm sort of fast forwarding, but these are like years going by where I'm working my day job, working on Intoxicated at night, saving up money, sort of like fine tuning the concept, speaking with the labs. Like I'll talk about that in a minute, but it was really difficult to like find a lab that would take on my like wild idea, and one also that, would sort of allow me to have smaller minimum quantity orders. Like a lot of these companies order in hundreds of thousands of units. Like I was like, not sure I could even buy 1,000, and so.
What was your biggest, like, during this process, what was your biggest like fear?
Oh my God. Well, let me tell you. So I actually started to develop like panic attacks, like full blown Tony Soprano, like you're just standing around and like you faint. Like I was so afraid of everything. And I think that, I mean, you asked me what my biggest fear is. I think, the obvious thing is like failure. Because at this point, right, like this is like years have gone by between sort of me walking home from Sephora that day and creating my first document, which was like in 2013, to, now we're talking like 2019. So like, and I've gone back, I've paid to go back to school. I've totally switched my career path. So obviously like the fear of failure was pretty great. But it's funny because, and I don't think that, well, maybe I guess people do talk about it, but, maybe not enough, is what other people would think. Like, I just was so worried that, and it did happen too. I mean, my fears in some way were illegitimate, but people, people who you think are your friends, will kind of talk about you and this is so stupid and, just that she's going to fail and, oh my God, her serums are trash. Have you tried them? Like whatever it is. So I was really afraid of what other people would say and think. And especially when, I read this quote recently and it said something about like when you make a product, like when you like from conception on, that shit's spiritual, right? It's like a part of you is in this product. And so like it's really unnerving to kind of get like that spirit broken. It's scary. Because then also comes like the self-doubt too. Like you might have the most confidence in the world and then people will doubt you and then you kind of start to second guess yourself. So that was big for me, but just, the fear of failure and the fear of like looking stupid. And especially when I had put in so much time and energy and honestly risk, at that point.
How many times did people tell you no?
So with the lab or
with the lab?
Yeah. Man, I don't have enough fingers to count. Probably I'd say that I interviewed with like 20 to 30 labs. And this is, by the way, like there's no like list out there really that's like, hey, here's a list of labs that you should call around. Like this is really, it was, at least for me and at least back then, it was very difficult to find a boutique lab that was, again, willing to take on the amount of quantities of units that I needed them to do. A lot of labs wouldn't work with me because of, again, the concept. They didn't want to, no one is working with XCP018, which is the biomimetic variation of snail mucin. So it was really difficult in multiple ways. One, because like, who am I as this like lone wolf girl? And two, that has this wild idea to use venom. And again, three, with the minimum quantity orders, because the labs that weren't scared to take it on were like, they're like, okay, well, that's great. So 250,000 units per SKU. It's like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it was really difficult.
And that was another research on itself, finding the lab.
Yeah, big time. That honestly is between the lab and the bottles, like sourcing bottles, especially glass, because glass is it's amazing for skincare products because it basically I'm not going to say it guarantees that like stability, but it's much more stable than plastic, right? And I knew that I wanted a luxe product. I wanted it to feel heavy in your hand. I wanted it to feel like something. And so that was really difficult too, was sourcing bottles, again, for a minimum quantity order, and also to ship them over. So part of the issue too is glass bottles are so heavy, right? So like I was having, and there's pretty much no, in my opinion, amazing glass manufacturer in the US. Like you really have to outsource that. And actually our bottles are the only thing that are not made in the US. So you have to like basically ship these glass bottles to California, which is where my lab is now, that did take a risk on me and did end up accepting me, and then back to Boston. So I'm paying so in addition to having a really hard time sourcing these bottles, like no matter what company I was going to go with for the glass manufacturing, it was going to have to go to California and then back to Boston. So that's like tens of thousands of dollars right there, just because.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing, and that's a lot to take on just you at this point. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and so we're sort of landing around the 2019 timeframe. And this is actually when I met my husband. So my husband, and he definitely has a big part of, he plays a big part in my story, because my husband, when I had met him, had already owned his own business for 10 years now. So it was very serendipitous that because I launched in November of 2019 and I met my husband in February of 2019. So just, maybe 8 months or something before I had launched. And he really, I have to give him credit, because at that point, again, he was such an experienced business owner and he knew so much. He really helped me sort of like fine tune some things and gave me sort of ideas that, I wouldn't have otherwise kind of come up with. And so that was, again, it was really serendipitous that we met at that time, sort of just as I was about to launch, to really like button things up, and to just kind of have a better picture of what was sort of next and what was going to happen when I launched. It really saved me a lot, because again, so all the way up to that point, it was just me and a wild idea running around town, telling people I'm making this company called Intoxicated
Which I
Cosmetics.
love. I love the energy. I love the passion
Yeah,
behind it. Just believing that even when people just talk trash behind on your back and they don't support you and they say no and they foreseen your failures, you hold on to your dream and then you move forward with everything. And you did that. Is so amazing. And speaking also of the importance of having a partner that supports you and that sees your vision
right.
also is so important, and just an amazing part of your story too.
Yeah.
um
It's actually funny, because right before I met my husband, it was like Christmas time, and I remember I was reading a book, and it was called The Dark Horse. And this book was like, really, because this again is right before I'm launching, so it's like about a year almost before I launch, and I knew I was really kind of like revving up to do it. And this book called The Dark Horse basically spoke about disruptors, right? So disruptors in any industry. It could be anything. But people who, no one really, it's like in the title, The Dark Horse, like no one really sees coming and people sort of doubt. But when you have such a different approach to an enormous industry, right? You become a disruptor. If no one would have ever seen like the venom trend coming, but it's such a niche in this billion-dollar industry. And how are you going to stand out, right? How are you going to ever get in with the L'Oreals and the Drunk Elephants and all these big companies that really just have like a stronghold on this industry? The only way to do it is to be wildly different, in my opinion. So,
and
and then to, of course, getting back to my husband, like, I don't know how people do it who don't have supportive spouses. Like he changed the course of my business for the better, in so many ways. And also too, like being a mom, and I'll get to this part too, because it's definitely like been a journey with becoming a mother, a few years into this entrepreneurial journey. But like people who don't have supportive partners, I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, he's always believed, like, he's like, this is it. Like, we're going to do this. I'm going to eventually quit my business and we're going to run this thing full time. And yeah, he's always been really supportive. So I don't think that there's any way to success without a super supportive partner, especially as a woman and a mom. Like he plays daddy daycare all the time, and he has his own business and whatever, but he's like, let's do this thing. So
but let me tell you something. I love that you mentioned that you don't know how other women does it without the support. And I can tell you on that part that it's mostly holding on to your dream.
yeah,
Hold on to your dream, hold to that passion no matter what, and keep moving forward even when people just standing there like a rock in the middle of the road. It's just like step over it. Don't let that stop you.
right.
And that's the attitude. And having interviewed women that have going through that part of their life when they're just building something amazing and they don't have the support, that's why they say it's just they just hold on to that dream.
Yeah.
So but it's so amazing. Now we launch in what happens.
Oh man.
Tell us now the good stuff.
Okay. So think about when I launched, right? 2019, November of 2019. What happens next? The pandemic. So Here I am. I know. I'm like, just my luck. I'm like, you're kidding. So we launched and, things are like good. They're not like amazing, but, I'm making a few $1,000s a month. And I'm like, I'm just getting there. I'm like figuring out the marketing strategy. I'm figuring, we're live. I have friends who are buying, which was amazing, like really supportive people in my family. Like there were people who were standing behind me, which felt great. And so we get through the holidays, a couple $1,000. I think I made like $5,000 my first month. And I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like I'm doing it. And we're doing some pop-ups in Boston. At this point, I had been in the salon spa industry for like 5 years, I guess, and or 4 years. And so I knew a lot of like business owners. So I was like, hey, it's me. Can I do a pop-up at your spa or salon? And they were like, yeah, like, we were all friends, and Boston is a really small, like pretty tight knit community, and especially the salon and spa industry. So, and I was like hitting the bricks too. Like I had a backpack on with like, I just shoved a ton of serums into, and I would go door to door, salons and spas, and be like, hey, I'm Rachel. I'm just going to give you these free serums. Please check them out. Please consider me for wholesale. Like, let's meet, let's get a drink, like whatever it was. I was just anything that I could do, I was doing it. And so anyways, so we get through the holidays. I'm like, okay, great. And then the world shuts down. And I was like, so the world shuts down and I'm like in a full-blown panic. We actually had this event lined up with Whistle Pig Whiskey. One of my my friends, she's a total doll. She works for this I guess I don't want to say seamstress, that's not the right word, but they own his name is Alan Rouleau, and they own this like suit company on Newberry Street. And her name is Sonia, and she was basically like his assistant. And they were like lifelong friends too. Two amazing people. And so she was like, hey, I know this person who works at Whistle Pig Whiskey. How cool would it be? And their store is like super cool. It's like dark leather couches and really unique. Like I'm pretty sure they have one of those like British telephone booths in the office.
Oh, wow.
Really like cool, ornate, vibey. And so anyways, Sonia is like, listen, I know this woman who works at Whistle Pig Whiskey. It would be so cool if we did like Intoxicated Cosmetics, like / Whistle Pig Whiskey event. And I'll invite like all these people that I know. Let's do it. And I'm like, yes, another pop-up, like, let's go,
Yes.
And so, it was canceled, and because of COVID, of course. So
yeah.
I'm like panicking because I'm all these different things that I was supposed to be doing. People start dropping off. I'm like, oh my God, like, how am I going to sell these serums? And so, and also like, by the way, I'd spent all of my money. I mean, I'm at the point where I'm like selling like handbags that I had. I'm like my like little Louis Vuitton bag. I'm
oh my God.
Like, whatever Poshmark. I'm like trying to pay rent over here.
Yeah.
And so I started to really get scrappy. So I just started to so I got on Instagram and I said, whoever wants to try my products, free samples. I will pay for shipping. I will give you the samples for free. And I sent out hundreds of them because also I have all these serums. Like, what am I going to do with them? No one's buying them. And also, again, too, I think that sort of when I launched, and, for me, it makes total sense. I'm like biomimetic venom that, are cruelty-free, and it does this and it does that. But people hear venom, they see a snake, they sort of a lot of times panic. And I think that, in the end, like a big piece of what I was missing was being like really forward facing with the educational piece of like what my products are and what they represent.
Yeah.
Cause I can't tell you how many emails and texts or whatever DMs that I got. They're like, you're
killing animals.
You're milking snakes and all this stuff. And I'm like getting hate mail that I'm like abusing animals. And I'm like, oh my God, no. But anyways, okay. So back up. So getting back to when the world shut down, I was like, I'm going to get scrappy. So I sent out all these free samples to people. I'm like, with my last pennies, and like my credit cards are declining, like the whole thing. And so people also on the same token at this time, of course, like the world is shut down. They can't go to see their esthetician. They can't go get their Botox. They can't do this. They can't do that. They're just literally sitting in their houses. So I started to post and post and post and interact and engage on Instagram. And I just like really like, I mean, I was on my phone, on the computer, doing whatever all day long for weeks. And also like, what else did I have to do? You know, and the world was shut down. So what kind of started to happen, and then it really started to snowball, was, again, these women aren't able to get their injections. So my products work in a similar way, but on a smaller scale, to Botox. So they started to buy them and tell their friends. And then those friends would tell their friends. And it became, my husband calls it the spider web, because it just sort of trickled into, you know, a lot of different people's, you know, sort of, what do you call it, on their feed on Instagram, or again, word of mouth or whatever it was. And again, with all these free samples flying around, you know, people were trying them and they were loving them. And that was when I really started to kind of like have some big months, where I was really making good money, and really thought that like, okay, like this thing it's happening, and it's like, it's going well. Like it's, this is my dream. This is my baby. You know, I'll never forget like the first like $10,000 month I had. I'm like thinking I'm like the richest person on earth. I'm like, wow, you know, we're partying again. It's COVID. My husband and I are like popping champagne in his house. And it was just so exciting. And I think too, like, the thing is you experience this like rush. Of course, it's your dream. You've worked so hard for so many years. And obviously too, like how I even got here, you know, the idea, the concept, like it's so interconnected with my life and my past, my father, and all these things. So it becomes like this addiction almost, that you crave. You know, when you hear that little, it's like a register ring on Shopify. I use Shopify.
Yeah.
And you hear it, you're like, yes, you know, you do like a little happy dance. So yeah, it became so fun. And, you know, they always call it like the great game of business, right? Well, it is like a game. And when you're winning the game, it's the best thing ever. So that went on for a while. And, you know, as COVID did too. And that was really when I first, again, sort of thought to myself, like, this was the right thing to do. And like, F the haters and everyone who told me not to do it. And that it was a stupid idea. And then, so fast forward to like that winter. So December of 2020, we had a crazy Black Friday, like just nuts. I mean, I think I have a video of it somewhere, but we had this little 2-bedroom apartment at this time. My husband and I are, you know, living together. And we had just orders all over our little home office. Like you couldn't see the floor. And I thought to myself, like, okay, I need to get some help. Like, this is kind of getting out of control. Like I can't packing like at like 3 a.m, these orders. And so I said, okay, I really need someone to help me, but how can I get sort of like cheap labor? So living in Boston, we have Northeastern University, which offers the co-op programs. So co-op programs, basically their students do 5 years in college instead of the 4. And the 5th year is essentially like where you do an internship with, it could be any business, and kind of like it gets you out into the workforce type of thing. They do it through their business program. And so I actually ended up hiring 2 interns through Northeastern's co-op program. And it was amazing because they really also like being, you know, not that I'm old or was old at that point in time, but you know, having a sort of fresh eye on like TikTok, and because that is sort of like, I'm a little past that generation where it's like, oh, like I'm like super fluid with TikTok. Like Instagram was like my domain, you know, my thing in my 20s. And, you know, here I am in my 30s and TikTok comes out and I'm like, how do I use this? Like, what's this app? And so these young girls came to work for me, and they were awesome. And they just like really helped. And then we went viral on TikTok and we got a ton of orders. And also it really helped to like sort of free up my time, where I'm not kind of just like surviving, but also I was able to like step back, let them pack orders, let them do some of the social media stuff, and really sort of like think about what's next for the business and
Mhm.
how can we grow this thing. And so that's actually when I started harassing the woman at BoxyCharm to basically give me a chance. And she actually responded to me, and and then I got into BoxyCharm that same year with the interns. I also got into Forbes to be sort of like featured as one of the women, female-owned businesses that give back, because we had donated some money to some women's shelters for International Women's Day. And we also got into Vogue that year. So it was sort of like this really fast, like hot and fast pace thing, that like this animal that really from 2020 to like mid 2021, all of those things I just named happened. So it was like, we're on this like path. It's just like we're tearing ass, right? And it was wild. But then sort of fast forward to the next year, I got pregnant. And that was sort of when I really honestly like, needed, and I didn't have a great pregnancy. I had preeclampsia. And so I kind of had to sort of like take a step
Oh,
back.
wow.
Yeah, focus on me, and of course we were still running the business and everything, but you bet your ass I gave birth, and I'm like, had a C-section. I'm like searing stitches, and I'm packing orders. We're doing all things. Like, there's no maternity leave when you own your own business. So I'm like bleeding.
That's right. Oh my God. But that's such an inspiring part of your story. It's like, you did what you needed to do, you take care of yourself, but at the same time, once the risk was over,
Yeah.
then you came back swinging. Like, let's keep doing what we
Yeah.
need to do.
Exactly. And so that was sort of like the slowest year that we ever had, but it was on purpose. And I kind of was quiet, was still working, but I didn't really, I just could, like, for me and my baby's health, like I just couldn't really be going at the pace that I was going for the last few years. But yeah, so then I gave birth, and had some postpartum things like that, like, but it wasn't too crazy. And then again, I just sort of hit the ground running. And came out with new products. I really felt like, so we had started to talk to some, I don't think that I can say the names of the brands because we're still sort of
Mhm.
negotiating and things like that. But a lot of people, because of course, like my pipe dream is to be in a Sephora, in an Ulta, in some of these big box stores. And so I really, one of the things that a lot of these places told me was like, okay, great. You have 4 SKUs. You have 3 serums and a moisturizer, but like we can't put that on a shelf. Like, it's not a complete collection. So that was really sort of the year after I gave birth. That was really the time that I took to say, okay, what, like, we need to come out with more products and to work on them. Like, when you do work on a product, I mean, previously when I made my serums and my moisturizer, I had like 6 years to work on the formulas. So here I am. I'm like, not that it was rushed, because I really did take my time. And of course, I'm more knowledgeable now than I was when I first started. But I really had to have a super thoughtful approach to like, how can I make Intoxicated sort of a complete skincare collection, and also to sort of like pace out creating products. It's super expensive to do it, tens of thousands of dollars per
Yeah.
SKU. And again, not including those fun glass bottles and shipping them internationally and all that other stuff. So so I really took that sort of next year to think really thoughtfully about what I was going to do next, and what it was going to be. So I came out with the perfume, as you know, we were talking about that earlier,
Yeah.
and our Clean Queen cleanser, glycolic cleanser, and our peel pads. And we actually are currently in production with our eye cream, our signature eye cream, and it's going to be called Snake Eyes. So, and that's like just my marketing, my marketing at play, my background. I know I can't help myself.
I am obsessed. Let me tell you, for everybody that's listening out there, I mean, she is telling her story, but let me tell you why I love this woman so much. As you all know, I'm always scouting for the next success story. And when I heard her speak before and tell a little bit about her, And then I tried, because I do try her products. And let me tell you, I'm obsessed with
Oh,
your products. Like, I love them. Like, I am in love with each one of the serums. I have all three of them. I have the peel pads, are amazing. Like, every time I use them in the morning, I'm like, but I just wash my face. Like, how all this was seen.
oh,
How's it possible? I'm like, still things coming out of my face, and
oh, that
yet it
does
is
it.
like, I love it, and it's like, it's definitely like the peel pads. It's like power wash, right? It's like, that's the name
Gosh,
of it.
yep,
It's definitely a power wash, and believe
yeah,
me, like, it lives up to its name. Um, and then each product is so well thought. Everything from the packaging to the formula, and let me tell you, you have done such an amazing job, and I have
thank
to give you all the flowers in the world, because you deserve them. And then after hearing how everything started, it makes me love your brand even more.
you. Okay.
So, and by the way, the bee serum right now is my favorite. I mean, first it was a snake, then it was a little bit of a snail, and then now it's the bee serum. I'm like, I'm down for it. Like, I need everything. I need that for my body. Like,
Yeah,
we need to do something.
we're working on a body product. I don't want to say too much about it, but
Yes, but let me tell you something. It is, like, I think I mentioned it before, it's delicious. It's so good. Each one of them, and they work. Like, I'm being able to see the difference in my skin. So
right.
that's the first review, guys, that you're gonna hear. Like, I totally recommend this products 100%. Like, you have to,
Thank
once
you.
we're done here, you need to go to her website and order you some, because you're gonna love them.
Yes.
But definitely, I mean, and now hearing all your journey and everything that I have gone through, it is so inspiring, and it makes me love the brand even more, honestly.
Thank
So thank you for taking that leap of faith, for holding on to your dreams, to keep, moving forward despite everything that happened, and making your product something that is truly special for
thank
for all of us. um Now, I know that you said that you have few things coming next
Yes.
for the products, but what's next for Rachel Sommers?
Man, so many things. I feel like I never really lost that sense of like, just I gotta do it all ever since my apartment with all the notes all over the walls. So I definitely, so yes, new products for sure are coming. We and several. So like, and that really is what I love so much about my business is that, like, it's great to market. It's fun to run a business. It's fun to make money. But like where I really nerd out is formula development.
Mhm.
It's just I love the research. I love the science. I love, learning, understanding, combining things. So for me, it's super exciting what we're doing, sort of behind the scenes. But as far as what's next for the business, we have been working on some pretty big deals. That, I'm hoping, again, I can't really say the names for legal
No
reasons,
need, no need.
but working on some big deals. And, I just want to continue growing the business. Right now it's, my husband and I, and we have one employee, and which is awesome, but we certainly are kind of getting to the point where we really need more people, more hands on deck, and really just scaling. I definitely have like a 5-year goal, and that certainly I feel like I can say it because Sephora is not the person we're talking to, but it's
Yeah.
definitely my 5-year goal is to get into Sephora and Ulta. So that for me would really be, like, I, I feel like you've never really made it. However, for me, I would have a little bit of a happy dance, like the ones that I used to have when I would get an
Oh,
order.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean,
So
it's always good to receive that packet, that box in the mail, um, with that beautiful tape, because she has, even, I mean, her marketing is so well thought that even the tape for the box is something else. It's like, I love it. I
I
love
know
when I
it's so fun. I was like,
it
but when I
is.
made it. I was like, I hope that they don't think I'm like sending like explosives in the mail or something. You know, I feel like we are like the best at getting flagged for things because it's like intoxicated cosmetics and there's like snakes and bees and snails,
Yeah.
and skulls, and crossbones. Everyone is like, what is going on at this company? So,
Oh my God. Now now that you mentioned that, let's clarify that a little bit so people know what's really you doing with this animal.
yeah.
So they don't keep thinking the wrong way. So what you do with this, how you get the venoms done.
Yeah. So actually you'll be tickled to know that 2 of our 3 serums are vegan. So I'll talk about the 2 that are vegan first and then the one that isn't. So our vegan serum, so basically what it is, so it's a biomimetic peptide. So biomimetic equals lab created peptides. So what happens is you can think of this, let's talk about the snake venom, for example. You can think about this temple viper snake, which has this very unique venom to it, this particular breed of snakes. They're like dogs, right? There's different breeds of them. And so temple viper snakes have this really, amazing venom that has chemical compounds in it that are super applicable to skincare. However, with that being said, some of the components of this venom are not great for skin. They can basically like make your skin deteriorate, and there are bad components to it. And it's also an extremely unstable chemical compound. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, this naturally occurring chemical compound exists in nature. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to a lab and recreate it without any of the harmful components basically of it, and make it again stable, applicable to skincare, safe. It's clinically proven to work to inhibit those neuromuscular transmitters, which again enable the facial muscle movement. So we're just basically nerding out in a lab and copying what's going on in nature. So again, so our snake serum is based on temple viper snakes, and then our snail serum, who knew that snails had venom, but they do. They're called marine cone snails. And they have like these kind of obscure names. The snail serum, the venom is called XCP018. It's totally boring and scientific. And then the snake is called Synake, SYNAKE. And again, no animal ever even touched it. It doesn't come from the actual animals. We're just basically recreating it in a lab. We're kind of, just copying in a way. And then our bee venom, so our bee serum actually does come from real bees, and everyone's always most concerned about the bees. And so our bee venom, actually how we obtain it is it's really interesting. So you can think about like a beehive, right? So we have this beehive, and what we do is we attach this glass plate to the hive, which basically emits like really, really low electromagnetic pulses through this glass plate. And so what happens is it's so low that actually at any given time, only 1 in 10,000 bees will actually react to it. So very low, like we're not like torturing them or anything.
Mhm.
It's just every 1 in 10,000 bees at a time will react. And what happens when a bee stings anything, its stinger penetrates, right? And then it dies because it loses a stinger. But what happens with this glass plate is because it's not penetrable, the bee actually goes to sting the plate, and then it bounces off because it can't it can't penetrate the plate. But what happens is then it leaves the venom behind on this plate. And after this happens many thousands and thousands and thousands of times, we take that glass plate and we send it to the lab to be purified. And so the bees go on to live like long, happy lives. They're not harmed, but they give us this beautiful venom that we therefore purify, and then we just add it into our serum. So that the bee serum again is the only one that actually comes from real animals. But all other venoms, like we are working on a few other products that do have venom in them, but again, biomimetic. So bee will probably only ever be the one that actually uses real venom, because venoms are really unstable, like I mentioned before.
Well, let me tell you, I love them all. My
Thank
favorite right now is the bee. Maybe because I got it recently and I'm like, obsessed with it right now. But I love it. Like I think I already mentioned this, but it has a very subtle smell of honey, like very light,
Yeah, it's like
very light.
chamomile. Mm-hmm.
And it's so good. Like it is just like it's everything to me.
And I love it for makeup because bee venom, again, like as I mentioned when we were talking about my father, it has these antimicrobial properties. So like I love using the bee serum in the morning under makeup because it basically inhibits like the buildup of like bacteria, which obviously, of course, would create breakouts, which, you know, I do get. So I love it under makeup. And I really do fangirl between the bee and the snail. Those are like my favorite two. But right now, snake is so hot. So I don't know. That's the slogan, right? Pick your poison. So it's
Yeah.
whatever you like at the moment.
But the good thing is that, we have options and you have gave them to us.
Yes.
And it's amazing. Now, Rachel, are we almost about the end of this interview? Tell us well, for the audience out there, the aspiring entrepreneur
Yes.
that is listening to your story, what would you tell them that they can start doing today to start building their dreams?
So it's funny because, you know, before we hopped on here, we were talking, and I actually just talked to my my alma mater's graduating class of 2024, and you know, they asked me to talk about being an entrepreneur, and so this is like very fresh on my mind. But one of my favorite quotes, and I said this in my speech, is when you're climbing a mountain, never look at the top. Always just look at the footing in front of you, and eventually you'll get there. And the reason why I say it is because I think that a lot of times entrepreneurs think, you know, oh my God, like this is so daunting, like the road ahead of me. And it's true. Like, I don't think that you know, knowing what I know now and how long it took me really from like, you know, I'd say truly like almost 8 years between, you know, conception to actually launching. You know, I don't know if I would have stayed the course knowing that it was going to take that long. Like that's almost a decade of time and work and effort and energy. But I think that, you know, so definitely, you know, look at the footing in front of you, not at the top of the mountain. But also to being authentic to yourself and doing something that you really love. I don't think that you'll really ever know true success unless you have passion, and something that you authentically is authentically you. We talked about, again, before we hopped on to the live interview, but we talked about how intoxicated is me, and I am intoxicated. Like it embodies my personality. My style is the packaging. My way of thinking about things differently is the concept. I mean, it's, you know, it's me. And I think that unless your company and you can really be authentic with each other, it's just, people know when you fake it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But so yeah, those two things: never look at the top of the mountain, be authentic, and also just don't be afraid to do the hard work. I mean, it is a lot of work, but it is the most rewarding thing you will ever do. To see that baby, you know, I have a real life child, but to see my first baby to come, you know, into fruition and have that be something that people use and that people love and swear by, and to see it, you know, again, to have that first order come through, to be in Forbes, like those were moments in my life I'll never forget. And it's so worth it, but you have to put in the work. That's all.
I love it. Thank you. Those are great piece of advice.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story today with
Yeah,
us.
thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been very inspiring, and I hope that anybody is listening out there, not only get inspired but become fearless and go and jump and do everything that they need to do to achieve their dreams. Thank you for sharing your story. Now, where people can grab your products or connect with you.
Yeah, so we're kind of all over the place. So intoxicatedcosmetics.com is our website. We are on TikTok shop, Instagram shop, Facebook shop. So you can certainly grab us there. Yeah, it's just at Intoxicated Cosmetics across the board. And then we're on Amazon too. So if you have any like Amazon credits, or, you know, you like that, then certainly do that as well. We're on beautybridge.com. I'm trying to think if that's it. And we're in a few local stores in New England, but those are the main ones. Oh, and BoxyCharm and Ipsy.
Pepsi. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. You
Thank
don't
you.
go just yet. Now we gotta tell our audience goodbye for
Okay.
now. We'll see you on the next one. Until the next episode, we're gonna tell them unlock your potential and be fearless. All right.
Love it.
Love it. Okay, thank you for being here today. Don't forget to share this episode with anybody that you love and replay it. And replay it. I mean, she gave us so many nuggets of knowledge, and her story tells you so many things that you can do to start working towards your dream today. So make sure that you replay this episode. Thank you so much for your support. And until the next one, don't forget to unlock your potential and be fearless. Bye-bye.